How's everybody going? This is Tex. Hope you're having an awesome day. Today's topic was what was brought up. Someone had asked me, how do I work with uh, stopping myself from saying things that are going to boomerang on me and I'm going to feel bad about later? Basically, how do I have impulse control when it comes to my communication skills? And how do I wrap that in with the idea that I have mood swings? See, there's a lot of things that went on there. It wasn't just a case of you jumping up and saying something. Sometimes it may be, but many times we reply to things in anger, we get hurt, and our response is to say things according to our levels of being hurt or feeling bad. So one of the things is identifying your triggers. If you don't already have a little notebook or something to keep stuff in, my recommendation is that you set up a book, a diary, or whatever, and you identify your triggers. You take a page and you write down each one of your triggers. Now, some people go, well, be specific with triggers. What do you mean? Especially if you haven't been doing therapy for a while, or you haven't talked to someone who does the kinds of CBT and DBT and stuff. Triggers are things that set you off. Now, for some people, it could be outside stimuli, such as a lot of noise, heat, stuff like that. It could be working you up, repetitious sounds, clanging, banging. I know I'm not big at sitting near the kitchen. If I'm in a restaurant, I do not like being around the noisy, banging, loud sounds of the kitchen because they start to irritate me. Other people, it could be certain personalities irritate you. And if you can't identify the type of personality, you might be able to identify the person, knowing that being around Uncle Bob gets on your nerves and you tend to mouth off. This is where you start really pinpointing those triggers. Now, I tease a lot of people and I tell them, if you can't find the trigger, look and see if you can find the urge in yourself when it's coming up. What does that mean? If you are sitting somewhere and you have an urge to do something, that urge probably came from somewhere. So if you find yourself mouthing off to other people, saying mean things or whatever, probably identify the fact that you had an urge to open your mouth, and that's a good reason to not open your mouth. In other words, when you have that urge to reply, practice not replying. Not everything that says has to have a reply. Not everything that someone else does needs a comment. So if someone says or does something that irritates you, and it's very easy to get into a practice of just answering, maybe spend an hour, maybe even an evening. When people say things, before you reply, take a second, count to 10, breathe. Think to yourself, does this even need a reply? My clients will tell me, well, they said something stupid. So you join in with them and be stupid too. They said something mean. Okay. So is saying something mean going to make things better? And don't give me, I had to, because no, you don't. Unless someone's holding you at gunpoint, you don't have to say anything. Be honest with yourself. You have an urge to reply. You want to say something. So that's your first urge, to open your mouth and reply back. And many times that will get you in trouble because what you're going to say hasn't been well thought out. And then later on, no matter what was the cause and how much you try to justify what you said, you still kind of feel bad because you might have hurt someone's feelings that you really care about, or that you depend on, or that you're close to. So think about that. Sometimes we start working it up in our mind. They will say something and we will take it personally. We will bring out our own personal insecurities and wrap that around it. And then we'll feel like we have to say something about that. You know, the thing that happens a lot of times is people have this urge to tell you what you should do to give you good advice. You're going to get that everywhere you go. It sucks. I don't like it. I just know it's going to happen. Most of the time, those people that are giving you advice don't know what the hell they're talking about, but they just love giving advice. They're going to give you advice about finances, even though they're broke. They're going to give you advice about, marital relations, even though they can't keep a marital relation going. they they're going to give you advice about what job you should have, even though they hate their own job. And they're probably not going to ask you the specifics of what are your goals, what are you enjoying, or what do you want to do, or where do you want to be. They're just going to tell you what's best for you. And you're going to have an urge to pop off right back at them. Totally get you. Been there, done that. Bought a t-shirt, had my picture taken in front of the silly sign. So I can say I've replied to those things, and I probably will again. It's a work in progress. I do know that sometimes I catch myself, sometimes I smile, sometimes I get an evil smile, sometimes I reply in less than nice ways. I'm working on it. Never said I was perfect. Don't expect you to be either. It's a work in progress. So when someone says something like that to you, trying your best to put out those good manners and be well behaved and smile and take it in stride. At the very least, take a second and think about what you want to answer. Because when you just pop off, you're letting other people control you. And I know you don't want that. You want your responses to be controlled and measured and specific to what you want to achieve. So, again, think about it. Finding out what else triggers you, upsets you, you know. Maybe sometimes when people talk about certain things, it's very upsetting to you. Maybe being treated in a certain way. Sometimes it may be specific to other people's actions, like you don't like people who are, rambunctious, moving around, jumping up and down, all that kind of stuff gets on your nerves. Knowing that if you're around that kind of stuff, you might need to back off, find some quiet time. And I encourage you, now that you know everyone has triggers, taking the time to be aware that other people may be triggered by you. That's right. You may be doing things that you think are totally innocent that trigger the other person. And it would be nice if the other person knew these were their triggers and knew how to handle them. Maybe they don't. Maybe they're not working on themselves yet. But giving them the grace to say, okay, I can see that this trigger's going to move back. I'm going to give you a break. I'm going to try to do things different, talk about something else, change the subject. Or heaven forbid, actually take responsibility for what you did and go, I said that. I can see it upsets you. I don't want to upset you. So let me not do that. Let me see if I can do better. Or if you want to, we can come back later and talk about it. And then shut up. Yes, shut up. Don't go back and go, well, I know that hurts your feelings, but that is not the way to calm things down. Well, I did it for your own good. Maybe you did, but hush. They don't need to hear that. Also going back and going, well, this is the reason and this happened and that. You have to know my side of the story. See, that's you trying to bandage your wounds. And it doesn't let the other person feel hurt. Simply accepting that you done something that, didn't go over well, and taking responsibility for it and walking away from it. You don't have to keep doubling down. You don't have to keep justifying why you did it. You don't keep trying to convince the other person that it's okay that you did it. All those things will not help you in the least. Neither will passive aggressive pops, and neither will, over emotionalizing your response. In other words, they let you know their feelings are hurt, and if you jump into it and go, okay, these things were done, and then you start crying or you start, laying on the big emotions, the other person is going to get upset because they're going to feel like that they're being shamed or they're being blamed, and it just keeps getting into a bigger mess. I had a client, tell me that they were talking to someone significant to them, and that person said something that upset them and hurt them. And when they pointed that out, the other person immediately went into the crying and, oh, I'm just a bad person, and I do bad things, and just like, no, let's not do that, people. This is not a contest of martyrs. This is about being able to simply accept responsibility for your actions and know that you have triggered someone else. So this is a two-way thing, knowing that you can get triggered, knowing that you can trigger. And this is a step towards more assertive, positive communication, being able to talk and know when it's time to not talk. In other words, it's time to let things go and say, can we come back to this later? And actually come back. Don't always do that. We'll come back to this later, never come back to it, because people will learn not to trust you. And then they'll want to keep on in the moment, which is not always good. So again, identifying your triggers, very important. If you can, start writing them down. And then later on, we can start going into what is this trigger? Why is this a trigger? What you can do to help lessen this trigger and eventually get to a point where it doesn't trigger you, maybe. Possibility. For now, though, we just want to know that you're being triggered so that you can start deep breathing, calming down, stepping back. There's a very good CBT gimmick that I like called STOP, S-T-O-P. Again, go right into Google, look it up, STOP technique for CBT. Some of them have S-T-O-P-P. But like I said, look it up. And it's the idea of stepping back, taking a breath, observing what's happening. And then different ones have different things for the P. One of them is practice what works or what's worked in the past. I like that one. The idea, though, is you have an acronym that helps you to remember what you should do when these things happen, to help you not do those things that you don't want to do, to react in a better fashion, if you will. Okay? So there's a little bit of CBT in there. There's a little bit of several other things going in, understanding your triggers, your emotional points, things that bother you, understanding when you're bothering other people. And I hope that helps you on the road to being able to have a happier, calmer experience overall when you're dealing with other people. Okay? You have a great day, and I'll talk to you later.